Hello, folks. Welcome to the job application tool demo. I guess the aim of this ultimately is to give you a bit of a sense of exactly how to use the tool, because I appreciate there's a lot of features with it and it can be quite daunting. Please get in touch with me if you're watching the recording and ask questions if you've got some, but hopefully this will help clear up some of the ways that it works. Okay. So I'm going to start first of all by doing a quick demo of the homepage and how it's set up. So this is the landing page once you've logged in, and at any given time, if you click on the top right where it says the Career Transition Club logo, it'll take you back to that homepage. And there's three different functions that exist here. You've got the review job match part, you've got the ask Tony part, and you've got my little face down here that will help you if you've got any questions. Okay. Also, you've got the menu in the top right, and this is your navigation panel for getting to all of the different parts that you have. Okay. So we'll go through all of those sections in a moment and work through what that looks like. Also, if you want to do anything with your membership, change your password, you can do all of that through this cog and that settings link. Okay. Let's get to the real part that you actually want to see then, which is reviewing a job match and watching how that works. So I've created a demo CV, and basically, which is my experience, because I know myself well enough that I'll be able to see what comes up. And this will give you an overview of exactly how you can use it to apply for certain jobs. Okay. So the process starts, click review job match, and it pops up with a screen that asks you to paste your CV and paste the job description. Okay. One thing I've been asked before, why can't you just upload your CV and keep it there? Okay. But you've got to bear in mind that the expectation is to tailor your CV for every role. So I've left it deliberate so that if you're analyzing different CVs and things like that, you can paste whatever one is the most relevant one. Okay. So I'm going to start by selecting all of my CV and simply pasting that in. And then I'm going to go with a job description. So this is some job descriptions that I've pulled together based on certain scenarios that the tool will hopefully play for me and do as it's supposed to. So I've taken the full job description in here and pasted it in, and the same with the full CV. Scroll further down and press the review job match button, and it'll think about it and take a moment to come up with the analysis and produce the report. So this scenario is hopefully going to show me a top candidate result. And where it's a top candidate, this means that you're a very close match to the role that has been advertised, and you would likely be a good fit for that type of opportunity. And thankfully, it has in fact done that for me, 95%, which is one of the top scores. But again, this job description was written to give me this result. So it's very rare. I'm not even sure if it has ever given a 95%. So in terms of the report that you see, first of all, you would notice up front that this is recommendations only. And one of the things that you've got to bear in mind is that whilst your CV has a certain description of your skills, and whilst a job description has a certain perspective of what the job is, it's only at the hands of the information it's receiving. So if there's something missing from the job description, that's obviously not going to form part of this. If there's something omitted from your CV in relation to your experience, that's obviously not going to form part of it either. It's only intelligent enough to look at your CV and the job description. So then it gives you a ranking, 95%, which again is better than I've ever seen, and tells you why you're a good fit for the role and what your key transferable skills are. Okay. It'll also focus in on your potential gaps and development areas and what your application strategy needs to be. Now, I'm going to dive in on an example that's more of a transferable skills and show you how to use that report specifically so that you can get familiar with it and understand how that works, because it's better to work through an example and take that from there. And next, we're going to look at unsuitable match so you can see what that looks like. So again, I'm going to copy my CV, paste it into the tool, and copy a job description for this role. Is completely unsuitable for me. Again, if it recommends that I go for it, I've built the wrong tool. But ultimately, the difference with the unsuitable role here, it will not give you recommendations on how to tailor your CV or to go for the role if it doesn't think you're a suitable match. Because my honest view is that you shouldn't be investing the time and space to go for a role that you're not a close enough match to. And it's typically built that a match rate of 70% or above, with a handful of exceptions. It will not recommend the actions that you need to take off the back of that. But here we are, unsuitable role. Don't apply for it. Your CV demonstrates planning, career development. This is global supply chain and logistics. This summary will always give you a high level overview of exactly why it's made that recommendation. And if you want to go deeper, it does highlight the transferable skills that you've got, but it focuses on the vast amount of skills that I don't have for this particular opportunity. Okay. No recommendations are provided as applied for this role is not recommended. Okay. So the final scenario I'm going to show you then is the transferable skills match. So again, this role, my background is workforce planning, it's resource management, it's career coaching. So strategic workforce planning is a skill that I've got, but I've never actually done recruitment. So a global talent acquisition role is a stretch for me. So let's put it through its paces and see what happens. So basically, review the job match, paste the job description in, and paste the CV in. I've done that the wrong amount. And this is the transferable skills match. And review job match. So again, transferable skills is something that you've got the everyday skills to do. But if someone has a closer industry match, or if someone has a closer skills match, ultimately, there will be a top candidate. The majority of roles that you apply for will fall into the transferable skills match bucket, because if a hiring manager has been really extensive about the skills they're looking for, it's going to be highly unlikely that they're actually going to find someone that has each and every element that they're looking for. And again, the tool is trained to give you recommendations about what you need to do in order to handle those roles. So try not to be disheartened if you find that your transferable skills match a lot of the time. It's actually a good thing. You've got plenty of transferable skills to offer. It just means you've a wee bit more work to do to your CV in order to get it up to the standards that you're looking for. So this is where I'm going to dive into a bit more detail then about tailoring the CV and how to use the tool to do that. To save a bit of time, I've already tailored the CV off the back of some of the recommendations it's done for this particular role. So as usual, you get the summary up front that tells you why I might be a good fit for that. But to highlight some of the differences, I need to highlight my internal mobility space and workforce planning expertise to showcase how that relates to global talent acquisition. And that makes sense because my experience in this space is all around moving people around the organization, but never recruiting them in. Okay. So key transferable skills. This first section, by the way, just gives you a bit of a headline view of why you're a good match for the role. So a brief paragraph to cover that, and then the key skills that sort of help me align to it. But it also takes the time to showcase to you what the potential gaps look like. So it gives you a quick description of what that paragraph is. And then it gives you the gaps that are missing. I don't have leadership experience for talent acquisition. I've never dealt with employer branding or recruitment. I've not worked with agencies or vendors when it comes to recruitment. And I have not got direct experience of using an ATS platform, although I've got training in it. So they are my real gaps that I need to process. And if you're reading that and go, well, I do have that experience, then it's missing from your CV. So remember that when you're going through this process. Okay. The next section then is application strategy, is the type of things you need to be doing in order to tailor your CV for the role. So in this example, it is telling me that I need to focus in on human capital growth and strategic resource management. So this is the optimized CV that I've done, and the highlights are the bits that help me stand out based on those gaps. Let me just zoom in a little bit further. So it told me to scope recruitment requirements and lead a global talent acquisition function. That's what my ambition is. So this is what I've changed in the CV based on the tool's recommendations in order to try and enhance it and get it more ready for this type of opportunity. Then we'll look at the skills and experience section. So this is telling me the skills that it recommends that I add to my profile in order to make sure that I can score higher. Okay. Realistically, strategic talent ecosystem design, I have a little bit of experience in that. I definitely have experience in global workforce optimization, talent tech, executive talent advisory, talent brand development. I've not really done any of those type of things. So what I've done is added in additional bits into this core competencies piece, like internal applicant system, because it mentioned ATS was a gap previously. I've moved strategic workforce planning to the top, whereas in my old CV, it was towards the bottom. I've moved career transition coaching to the bottom because in my old CV, it was towards the top, but that's less relevant to this type of work that we've done before. And then for the tools and methodologies, I've got a lot more specific about the technology I've been involved with, whereas on the previous version, you can only really see talent deployment frameworks, skills, automation, technologies, etc., etc. But based on the tools feedback, I've gone in and actually updated that to talk about the systems and how I've been able to use those type of things. Okay. So then next part is the work experience. And this section tries to highlight the kind of things that might be missing from the CV when it comes to work experience. And then gives recommendations of the kind of things that you can potentially change. Okay. These key questions is trying to help you to think about the type of things that you've not put in your CV, which you might have experienced it. Okay. So have I ever been involved in projects that reduce the reliance on external recruitment by strengthening internal talent pipelines? I absolutely have. Part of my job was to find people internally within the firm to reduce the organization's need to recruit. So that's not in my CV, and that makes perfect sense to add in. Okay. Can you recall instances where your workforce planning directly influenced the company's external hiring needs? Kind of similar. And have I ever managed relationships with vendors? That one I haven't done. But in those key questions, it's forced me to think of things that I can go, yes, I can add that into the CV. So as a result of that, I've talked in this role about reducing external recruitment costs. I just add in that simple sentence because that's the role where I would have done that particular ask. Being involved in recruitment and contractor deployment is another one that I hadn't highlighted previously. So they're not major changes, but it just adds this language in so you can see that type of thing. Then for each of the roles that you've done, it gives you specific feedback about the kind of things that you can draw more attention to. Here's one I provided earlier. Inserting the word talent acquisition, because that's closely related to the role, talking about reducing recruitment costs, talking about recruitments and contractor deployments, and then equally recruitment insights. Just add in these words to change that terminology, get to be closer to the match, okay? So here are the things that were previously missing altogether, and this is the NTS keywords part, and it's a good sense check to make sure that you're actually going for the role. Talent acquisition's now been added, but I don't have the specific skill sets, so I can't add those in, okay? So now as a result of that, I've optimized the CV and I've been able to pull that together so that I can go through the process. So now that I have reanalyzed the CV, this is the new one. I'm going to go and see what it changes me to. So if I go back to the job application tool and I start at the homepage, if I go to review job batch, there's this section, have you done your CV tailoring? Reanalyze your CV here. So if I go to my history, I should see the previous report, and there's a button here that says reanalyze. And that just invites you to paste the CV in again and run it basically from there. So if I reanalyze this, it'll do its thing and compare the feedback that it asked me to do previously and demonstrate whether I've done elements of it. It'll also remind me of things it said previously, just to sense check if there's anything else that can be done there. And then you'll get a bit of a better sense of where you stand. So I've now been upgraded to a top candidate. It's a 5% increase. So what the changes that I've put in there have made me more closely aligned to the role. It gives you a summary and recognizes what changes have actually been done. So you can see there exactly where I've made the changes and it's calling out that additional piece. But then it's gone through the still high priority ones that I can look at. So strategic talent eco-design and global optimization is new competencies. I don't really have that, so I can't again. So it'll work through certain things to see if there's ways that you can try and additionally go back into your CV and see what needs to be done. Then it'll suggest some final bits to consider as well. So these are just additional ways that you can try and think about how you can do the elements of what you're looking for. So I'm happy enough then. There's nothing in this report that it's necessarily asking me to do that sits within my skill set. So I'm now going to apply for the job and go through that process. I have had feedback that some people are running their CV through this 5 or 6 times. So I've actually capped it now that it'll only let me do it 2 times because I think that's an element of overanalyzing. And the tool is designed to find the things that go wrong. So it's only going to keep finding and finding things. That's only going to make you paranoid to the point that you have 12 versions of a CV before you actually apply. Anything that it's recommended after 2 versions, you don't have those skills. That's the bottom line. It should be to that point, okay? So I've now limited it so you can only run it twice, and let me know how that goes if that causes any issues for you, okay? So we've gone through the tailored CV. Now that we're in the My History section, I want to show you this section because I think it can really help you keep notes of things, keep track of where you are with your applications. So each application has a status. So you can say that I need to tailor that CV. You can say that the CV has now been updated. I can say that I've submitted application. And you can filter this by all of those opportunities that set at that status, okay? So again, you can use this to actually track where you are with your applications. You've also got this notes function. So I can say that Drew referred me for this role via LinkedIn, and anything else that's relevant, you can basically have up to 500 characters in here and keep a note of something that you want to keep saved when it comes to what that looks like, okay? And equally, if you want to just view that report from previous times and just see what it said beforehand, you can see the history of what it looks like. You can change the version to the original one that was said. You can see the updated version that was there. And also, if you have an interview and you progress to it and you're like, oh, I can't remember the job description or the CV I applied with, the job description saved here, the CV is saved here, okay? So all of that information is available for you to tap into and look at with the My History base. So next, I'm going to show you is the interview preparation side. So first of all, I've now been invited to a first stage interview, so I can update the status. And if I go into the tool, there's a button up here that says Add Interview Preparation. And this is essentially for you to run the analysis then and for it to generate a fresh report for you that showcases the kind of questions you might be asked for an interview and give you an indication of what a STAR framework answer might look like for those questions. Okay. Now, again, it only knows the information about you that is based on the CV. So the STAR examples are not going to be accurate. They're accurate to your experience, but they will showcase what it looks like to go through the STAR framework and make sure that happens that way. Okay. So this is still generating. It normally takes up to about a minute, and then it'll be towards the bottom of the report that you can see the new interview preparations, and you've got the pop up at the end to let you know. So if you scroll to the bottom again, there's only interview preparation section, and this will give you what you need then for the type of questions that's coming. This is the first 5 questions that if you prepare for these, you'll be able to answer and respond. And it gives you a bit of a description if you hit on these arrows about the kind of things that you should be saying and what you should be considering as part of each of these questions. The potential probing area is this gives you an idea of the gaps that you might have in the job so that you can have a think about how you can overcome them. Okay. So it kind of gives you a view of what your learning objectives are, what your transferable skills are for that gap and relatable challenges. So it tries to feed you some information to help you think about the best way to get over what some of those gaps are. Okay. Then you've got the competency-based questions. So again, based on the CV, based on the job description, it will suggest 10 potential questions that you can be asked. And if I pick on this one, it'll tell me why it relates to the question and give me an idea of an example STAR framework question that I can go with. And the point is, this one might not be truly relevant to my experience, but it'll get me thinking about what I could come up with. That's the aim of what this looks like, and to showcase what the STAR interview framework looks like. Okay. So that's the interview preparation side of it. Hopefully that's useful then in terms of trying to help you prepare for an interview when that comes along. We are going to move on next then to the Ask Tony feature. So Ask Tony is the little pop-up at the bottom. You might recognize the color of that wall and that screen. You can open it up in full or just start a quick conversation with it here. For the purposes of the demo, I'm going to open it up full. And basically, at the bottom here, when you scroll down, it'll give you some suggested topics that you can try and ask it if you're just curious to play with it and get some insights. Or if you scroll to the bottom, you can ask it any question that you want, okay? One of the things to give you a setup of what this is based on, it is a chatbot that is built to read all of the blogs I've written since November 2024 about the job search strategy, okay? It doesn't use AI to infer anything that I've never written, okay? And I've tested that, as you can see, within an inch of its life. So I can try and make sure that it is actually answering the way that I would answer it. And I stand by every time that I've tested this. It is giving my perspective because it's based on blogs that I've written every week. So there's over 75 blogs that it's taken that experience from, okay? So I'm going to go with the first one. Any tips for nailing my next interview? I've clicked on that question. It's have a quick think. And then it'll give you an overview of how to prepare for an interview using the STAR framework, thinking about your camera lens, practicing out loud. And the thing it will refer you to is using the tool so that you can go and get the questions that are specific to that interview. And then it'll always invite you to join group coaching and have a specific conversation about it if you want to build up on it further, okay? You can ask it stupid things if you want to test it. And this is an example of me doing that. So I asked it if it would buy me a pony. And it is a great question, but it's not something that this tool can answer, okay? And if you really want to speak to me about buying a new pony, then bring it up in group coaching, and I will tell you to go and speak to a bloody horse specialist. I don't know who sells ponies, but that's the kind of way you can use the tool. So the aim of that, you've got the WhatsApp group, you've got the other things, but if you just want to ask a question quickly and get some perspective on it, then this feature's available. And again, to access it, you've got the Ask Tony button here or my little face in the bottom right, okay? Now, the last thing I want to show is how to log an issue, okay? So on the menu, you've got all of the different settings that are here, but one of them is log an issue. And if you simply click this, it'll take you to a Google form. And I've tried to keep this as specific as possible, where you can either leave feedback an error or defect, tick which kind of part of the tool it is, and then just give me a description of what is wrong. Okay. Um, I'll reach out to you if I need more information, basically, and take it from there. But it's aimed at trying to help you. Say, for example, you've done a CV report and you feel like it's really quite wrong, something's not right about that analysis. Please then flag it to me and I will have a look. Now, I'm quality checking in the background. Once a week, I sit down with the tool, look at the reports it's doing, pick some samples, look at the unsuitable roles, look at the top candidates. I just make sure, again, it's doing it in my voice. It is a tool at the end of the day that's based on AI and my knowledge. So make sure that if you're seeing anything you don't like, log this form and I will investigate it then to make sure it's giving me what I need. Okay.